Alright, sanibonani. Kule video le ngifuna sikhulume nge-present value which is i-loan, and ngifuna si-understand i-background ye-loan ukuthi isebenza kanjani and i-operate kanjani on the background, right? So depending on ama-scenarios lawa angenzeka naso uthathe le loan or just before uthathe le loan, ama-payments akhona azohluka depending on a certain scenario ezobe yenzeka, right? So le topic le ngizoyenza ngama-different scenarios ukuthi okay, what if kwenzeka so, and then we'll explain the results ukuthi kuzokwenzakalani if a certain situation happens, right? So i-loan, right, it's money that you borrow from an institution, or it can be a bank or from a person, right? But leyo mali leyo nase uyibhadara kumele uyibhadara seyine-interest, okay? So if you take out a loan nase uyibhadara back, you're not paying the same amount of money or the exact amount of money. You have to pay at least more than what you have taken, right? So it means uzoyibhadara nama-interest leyo loan. So that is point number one, which you have to note naso ukhuluma ngama-loans ukuthi imali lozoyibhadara, you have to pay it back with interest, right? You have to pay it back with interest, okay? Because it wouldn't make sense ukuthi uthathe a certain amount of money and then uyibhadare njengoba injalo. So it's like lo muntu okubolekile le mali, they're just wasting their time. So they have to make profit, or they have to gain interest based on ukuthi bakuboleke malini, right? So that is point number one that you have to note. If you take out a loan, you'll have to pay it back with interest, right? So it means ngeke usabhadala the same amount of money, okay? And number two, le loan yakho, you are given a time frame ukuthi kumele uyibhadare ngesikhathi esingakanani. So angeke uvele uthathe i-loan uthi ngizoyibhadara after 10 years nje, right? Kumele ube ne-time frame ukuthi okay, or ubese uthi ngizoyibhadara noma kunini. No, kumele ube ne-time frame ukuthi okay, fine, ngizoyibhadara after 5 years or 10 years or 2 years, right? And leyo interest yakho leyo ozoyibhadara, it will be based on your time frame. And in most cases, if i-time frame yakho incane, as in if uzothatha i-loan namhlanje uyibhadare maybe in a few days or a few months, then interest ozoyibhadara izobe incane, right? But if uzothatha i-loan and uplan ukuyibhadara over isikhathi eside, lapho it's most likely ukuthi interest yakho is over very high, right? So battery interest earning because you're taking the loan for a long period of time, right? So that is another thing that you have to note. You must have a time frame ukuthi uzoyibhadara ngesikhathi esingakanani leyo loan, right? Okay. So now uyibhadara leyo loan, there can be different options ukuthi ufuna ukuyibhadara njani, right? It's either you can pay the full amount at once, including interest, right? So for example, if umuntu uthathe maybe 10 rands, right? And then interest yakho ekumele uyibhadare is 2 rands. It means leyo mali ungayibhadara at once as 12 rands, right? Including the interest le 2 rand. Or maybe leyo mali ungayibhadara in installments, right? And ungenza ukuthi lama installments akho they are unequal. So for example, if you uthathe 10 rand and you have to pay 12 rand in total, for example, after calculation of the interest yakho, so your interest is 2 rand, right? So it's either you can pay maybe ubhadare 5 rand after 2 months, and then ubhadare maybe 6 rands after 1 month, and then bese ekugcineni ubhadara le 1 rand, right? So at the end of the day, or at the end of the period, you have 12 rands paid. So you can make it to be unequal payments, right? Or also you can make it to be equal payments, right? So equal payments, it means you're paying the same amount of money every month or every time period. Like for example, if utateleyo 10 rand and you have to pay it 12 rand including interest, right? You can pay 2 rands every month, 2 rands every month. So these are equal payments, right? So unama option amaningi okubhadela back le mali, right? So it can be equal payments, unequal payments, or you can pay it at once, right? So kule section le sizofocusa on the present value when la uyibhadela khona ngama-annuities, right? So nasithi ama-annuities isho ukuthi you are paying equal payments every month or every time frame, right? So if uzobhadela 2 rand, for example, uzobhadela 2 rand, 2 rand, 2 rand, kanjalo kanjalo. So sizofocusa kule ama-annuities, right? So now tata i-loan, just know that you have to pay it back with interest, and leyo loan lay it must be paid over a specific time frame, right? And kule section le so sifocuse la uyibhadela khona ngama-annuities leyo loan yakho, okay? So let's formulate a scenario, right? Let's say kunomuntu la and lo muntu lo bambiza ngoThabo, right? And uThabo ufuna ukuthenga indlu, okay? So let's say uThabo ufuna ukuthenga indlu. Thabo wants to buy a house, right? And the price of the house is, let's say 500k. So it's 500,000, right? So kule scenario le, let's say uThabo does not have any money, okay? Let's say uThabo does not have any money. So uThabo wenzani? uThabo uyahamba uya ebank, right? So naka ebank ufika uboleka le mali, which is an amount of 500k, okay? And then nakaboleka le mali 500k uzothatha le mali le fine ahambe uyithenga le ndlu, okay? But then manje i-agreement le anayo nebank ukuthi uzoyibhadara le mali back, which is that 500k, but uzoyibhadara back nama-interest, right? So i-agreement babenayo ukuthi okay, the interest rate esokunikeza yona la, let's say it's 12% per annum compounded monthly, okay? So ile interest rate abamcharge yona lapha kule 500,000, which is 12% per annum compounded monthly. And the agreement is that you have to pay back the loan in maybe 8 years. Let's say in 8 years. Mela padere back le mali in 8 years, right? So sifuna ukubona ukuthi uThabo nakathatha le mali which is 500k athenge le ndlu nasekabhadala lesikweleti, right? Uzoyibhadara ngama-annuities. So nasithi uzozibhadara ngama-annuities, sho ukuthi uzobhadara equal payments every month, right? So uThabo nakabhadara le mali, if installment sakhe sokuqala, the first installment, it must be 1 month after athathe le loan, right? It's not like uzoya ebank ufike lapha uthi ngicela i-loan bese uqala ubabhadara on the same time ulapha ebank, right? But which is possible, and that is called a deposit if unayo imali esandleni, right? And then ufuna ukuthenga something, like uzothatha i-loan yale mali eshodayo, okay, but that is soyenza le scenario leyo, which is scenario number 2. But scenario number 1, sithe Thabo has no money, shothi akana mali at all. Uyahamba uya-bank uthatha 500k, right? Now uthatha 500k uthenga le ndlu, and then uba nalama agreements lawa nebank ukuthi it's 12% per annum compounded monthly, and kuzomela abhadare le mali for 8 years, right? And uzoyibhadara ngama-annuities, and installment sakhe sokuqala uzozibhadara 1 month after athathe le loan, right? So into ekumele sizibuze yona la ukuthi le annuity yakhe azoyibhadara kahle kahle ingakanani, shothi uThabo uzobabhadara malini per month, right? So that is our question number 1. So asithi uThabo siyaqedile ukubhadara leyo loan, right? Question number 2, sesingazibuza ukuthi le interest ayibhadarile kahle kahle imalini, okay? So asiphendule ama questions ayi-2. So sifuna ucalculate ukuthi uThabo uzobabhadara ama installments amalini every month, right? So nasifuna ucalculate i-installment saThabo, sizosebenzisa i-present value formula, and the present value formula ithi PV is equals to X, and X wakho ila monthly installments wakho, right? Ile mali oyifunayo, and the present value le ile mali ayithathile ebank, right? And then 1 minus 1 plus I ile interest rate yakho, ne? And then minus N, and N wakho is the number of payments, right? And then divided by I. So sifuna ucalculate lo X law, which is lama monthly installments wakho, ukuthi okay fine uyithathile le mali le 500k, and ama conditions or i-agreement yakhe ihamba kasola pe bank, uzobhadara malini, okay? So now imali ayithathile ebank it's 500,000, right? So it's 500,000, and sifuna ukubona ukuthi uzobhadara malini. That is your annuity per month, right? And then 1 minus 1 plus I, we said 12%, so it's 0.12, and that 12% is compounded monthly, so it's divided upon 12, okay? Raise the power, it's how many years? It's 8 years, right? We multiply by that 12, which is compounded monthly, and then divided by I wako is 0.12, okay, divided by 12, which is compounded monthly. So sifuna ukubona ukuthi lo X kahle kahle malini la azoyibhadara per month. So lo X wakho yiyo le annuity azoyibhadara lo uThabo, and according to calculation uThabo uzobabhadara 8,126.42 cents, right? So now imali azobayibhadara uThabo every month for 8 years uzabhadare lesikweletu sakhe back, okay? So sesicalculate manje ukuthi uzobhadara malini, which is your annuity, right? Which is the value of X. And then manje sifuna ukubheka ukuthi le interest, le amount le azobayibhadara ngaphezu kwale 500k imalini kahle kahle, right? So asiphendule le question number 2. So question number 2, mele sithole ukuthi in total ubhadare malini, right? So leso i-calculator ngalokuthi sothi uThabo bekabhadara 8,126.42, right? But uyibhadare kayingakhi, right? For 8 years, 8 times 12, because we are bhadara every month, right? It was compounded monthly. So my payments awenzile, it's 8 years, but every month, right? So it's 8 times 12. Short in total, our payments lawenzile kahle kahle awu 96, right? So you can say 8,126.42 times 96, right, which is 8 times 12. So imali lekayibhadarile in total uThabo, it will be 780,136.32. Should na imali ayibhadare back. Okay, but uthathe malini yena? Imali ayithathile uthathe 500k, right? So it means phezu kwalo 500k khona imali ayibhadarile, and that is your interest, ile nto esiyicalculatayo la. So interest yala kuze siyithole sizothi le mali ayibhadarile uThabo, which is 780,136.32, sizominasa le ayithathile, which is 500k. Okay, and then interest yakhe lakayibhadarile uThabo izoba ngu 280,136.32. So now the interest ayibhadarile. So uthathe isquared it's a 500k was bhadara over 8 years, and interest azoyibhadara is 280k. Okay, all right, so manje asiformulate any scenario, right, based on the scenario le yaThabo. Okay, so for the same scenario, let's say uThabo ufuna ukuthenga indlu, right? Again, here is Thabo. Thabo wants to buy a house, right? And that house costs 500,000. Okay, and then manje kule scenario le ngifuna ukuthi be different from the first one, right? So kule scenario le uThabo has some money, and leyo mali leyo siyibiza nge-deposit, right? Remember lana benganayo at all imali, so nakafika ebank uvele wathatha yona le 500k, right? So in this scenario uThabo has some money, and that is what we call deposit. Okay, so let's say uThabo has 20% deposit yale price le yale ndlu. So it means uThabo manje nakafika ebank angeke kasathatha 500k as i-loan yakhe, right? Because already une deposit, so imalini le azoyithatha. So fine, let's say ama-conditions akhona sebank ayafana ukuthi mele ayibhadare over 8 years, right? And interest rate yakhe is 12% per annum compounded monthly. So it's 12% per annum compounded monthly, and mele ayibhadare over a period of 8 years. So let's say the agreement is afana lapha ebank. Okay, but manje because uThabo une deposit which is 20% deposit, so manje mele sicalculate ukuthi i-20% kahle kahle imalini yalo 500k, right? So le deposit yakhe it's 20% of 500k, right? And 20% of 500k is 100,000. So na imali lebekayiphethe uThabo esandleni nakayothenga le ndlu, right? Kusho ukuthi uThabo kuzomela athathe i-loan yamalini ebank. Fine, Thabo una 100k, right? And manje sekayahamba ke manje uya ebank. So nafika la ebank asikho isidingo sokuthi athathe 500k as i-loan yakhe, because unayo enye imali esandleni which is 100k. So malini le ekuzomela ayithathe, ingakanani le loan ekumele ayithathe uThabo, because already una 100k and udinga ukuthenga into yamalini ya 500k. So it means uThabo angeke asathatha lo 500k, but imali azoyithatha is 400,000. Right? I hope it makes sense, because into afuna ukuyithenga is 500,000, right? But uphethe deposit ya 20%, and that deposit ya 20% is 100k. So ushodelwa imalini kuze athenge le ndlu, ushodelwa i400k. So that is why afika ebank uThabo uthatha malini 400k. So le scenario le ngifuna discuss ukuthi okay, nakune deposit ku-affecta njani ama-annuities akho and ku-affecta njani interest ozoyibhadala, right? Because without deposit uThabo uvele wathatha 500k and wabhadala nayo imali installments, and interest yakhe wabhadala nayo imali la. So manje sifuna ukubheka ukuthi ngama-installments uzobhadala malini if anale deposit, and nale interest uzobhadala malini if anale deposit, right? So asicalculate ke manje ukuthi malini le azoyibhadala per month, which is the annuities, right? So ifomula lakhona nala, which is present value formula. Okay, and sesiyavumelana ukuthi uThabo uzothatha 400,000, right? And lo x yiwo lama monthly installment isifuna ukuwa-calculate la, and the interest is still 12%, which is 0.12 compounded monthly divided by 12, and for 8 years compounded monthly multiplied by 12, right? I 0.12 divided by 12 because it's compounded monthly. Okay, so according to calculation, my monthly installments ake azothi 6,501.14. So nayo imali azoyibhadala manje per month, right, for those 8 years. Okay, so naso compare kahle kahle le mali le ayibhadala manje nakane deposit nale mali le ayibhadala if anganayo deposit, right? Naso compare if akanayo deposit uzobhadala more monthly installment, right? But if beyond deposit ubhadala less, which is 6,501.14. Okay, so it means it deposit in such a way yakusiza ukuthi ubhadale installment esiphansi. Okay, so as-check manje based on interest le azoyibhadala. Okay, so sifuna ucalculate interest yakhe, sithi uThabo uzobhadala malini, uzobhadala 6,501 for how many payments kahle kahle? 8 years. Ubhadala 8 years, but uyibhadala monthly, okay, because it's compounded monthly, so that is 96 payments. So uzowenza payments ayingaki? Ay-96, right? And manje sifuna ukubona ukuthi in total uzobabhadala malini. So kuzoba yilo 6,501.14, okay, and size multiply ngo-96. So it means imali le azoyibhadala it's 624,109.44, right? Okay, so nayo imali azoyibhadala manje if beyane deposit, but beyabhadala malini if anganayo deposit. If anganayo deposit nayo imali bekayibhadala la. Okay, asibheke interest yakhe ke manje. Interest yakhe it will be le mali le, which is 624,109.44 minus lesikweleti asithathile. Isikweleti asithathile uthathe 400k, which is 400,000, right? so kuzobe ile mali leyo minus 400,000. So interest lazo ibhadara 224,109.44. Okay, so nasubheka la, if une deposit na imali ayibhadarayo like as in interest, okay, but if angana deposit na imali ayibhadarayo la. So now ubheka la lapha ithi 224 but lana ithini 280. So it means ubhadara more interest if akanayo deposit, but if unayo deposit ubhadara less interest, right? So if une deposit it's less installments, right? Njengoba ubona la bayabhadara 8,000 something la phezulu, okay, but installment sakhe lana it's 6,501.14. So it's less installments and also less interest legaso ibhadara. Okay, so that is scenario number 2 if uthabo une deposit. So in other words, we can conclude that i deposit iyakusiza nangabe uthatha i-loan.